good evening, salutations, everybody. Welcome to SOKy Nostalgia. Woo!
Yeah.
Anytime we get to podcast is a good time. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. This evening, I am the Matt.
Sir Bradley. Mick. Or Time.
Well, now I'm just confused. Sometimes he says tiny, like I'm Ron Burgundy. and now he throws in Mick for the first time, and I'm like, my brain just shut off. I'm Alan.
Man, you gotta keep people on their toes, dude.
I thought we just had an extra host on here that Tiny keeps referring to himself as this Mick character. So, instead of 4 hosts, we got 5.
You gotta cater to our audience, Tiny. You can't confuse people like that.
That'll be all right. I have faith that our listeners are intelligent.
Okay.
Email me, people. Email. E-MAIL us. Come on.
Matt,
Say as many controversial things as you can about the listeners, so they'll email Matt and he'll be happy.
That's just disappointment. That's just a sigh of disappointment. All right. Anyway, if you would like to reach us, which I doubt you will, SOKyNostalgia@gmail.com, DeadpanStudio18@gmail.com. Maybe I'm saying it too fast. SOKyNostalgia@gmail.com. If you have trouble typing that in, you can go voice to text. DeadpanStudio18@gmail.com. Deadpan-studio.com. Do I sound like an ASMR voice doing that?
No, a little
NPR.
bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking no, yeah, definitely NPR.
Well, sorry, listeners, but wake up and email us.
Buzz.
Of course, we're on Facebook and Twitter at SOKy Nostalgia and Deadpan Studio 18. If you're listening to us, I know you're out there. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, as well as Podbean, deadpanstudio.podbean.com. Let's see here. We've got a little bit of local news, a little bit of controversy. I don't know if anybody's really heard anything about this, but EPB, Glasgow Electric Plant Board, has suspended the superintendent's contract, and he's got to go and defend himself in a, pretty much a firing type of, court case because of signing a 20-year agreement with TVA.
Holy, really?
Yeah, they had a special. Okay, here's what's funny: the way it was set up, they called a meeting, and only 3 out of the I think there's like 12 board members. 3 out of the 12 board members go, or 4. Oh yeah, let's meet up. Everybody else was like, no. The chairperson of it said, no, we're going to cancel it this evening since all of the all the board members can't be here. So 4 of them, 3 or 4. Showed up outside of EPB, finds the doors locked, and set up chairs on the outside and have a meeting there because the minimum, according to the board regulations, is you only need 3 people. So they voted, and they have voted to hire some attorneys and some consultants to figure out if that TVA agreement's worth any salt, if they can get out of the agreement, and also they're looking to fire Mr. Billy Ray.
Man, that's just an oversight in legality at that point.
Yeah, because here's the thing.
I'm just saying, why would you make a contract where you have 12 board members but only need 3 of them to do anything?
Well, see, here's the thing. A little bit of behind the scenes here. Not that I care anything at all about Billy Ray. Really, I think he's a jerk. He can be an idiot. He's the superintendent of Glasgow EPB. What has that got to do with him and the board? He works for the board, right?
Well, you would think so. But...
Okay. So that means anything that he brings to the board, they have to agree to, or they say yay or nay. It's like going to Congress. You want to pass something, you got to have so many votes, whether you're the person that brings it in or whatever. You don't have to be on the board to bring that up to them, and then they vote on it, yay or nay. Billy does not get a vote. He's superintendent. It's a conflict of interest, so he does not get a vote. So all he did is he brought the TVA, because that's who the TVA deals with, is him. He brought the 20-year agreement to the board. So what do you think that means by the fact that the 20-year agreement was signed?
Survey says.
Thank you, Al.
That the board agreed to it, right? They voted and said yes.
Yeah, but how do you have a majority with only 3 people?
Well, that's the point. So how do you fire? First of all, how do you fire somebody who has nothing to do with the vote? How do you say we're going to lay all this on you and vote to fire you when we're the ones that voted for it in the first place?
It's called politics, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, really, if anybody knows my personal opinion of Billy Ray, I've met him a number of times, you know, not like, hi, Billy, I'm going to spend time with you, but just some of the things he's said and done has just not been the smartest thing in the world. He's kind of an idiot in some aspects. I don't care for him in the least, but it's like my feelings on El Presidente.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I don't care about him in the least, but I will stand up for anybody that is done wrong. So he's being done wrong. So if I had a boo sound on here, that's what you would get, you know, 3 or 4 members of the board.
Rub.
Well, their public image is shot to hell and has been for quite some time. So
I've never heard anything good.
No,
Well,
never.
I take that back. I've heard one thing good.
Yeah. The thing of it is, looking at the metrics right now, that TVA agreement would be the best thing for Glasgow. And that's, I mean, to bring in another power company who is going to have to spend millions of dollars in order to be able to bring in these new lines in order to run their system, which is completely different. The town's going to be up, and it's going to take them at least 10 years to do this. So that's already 10 years into what would have been a 20-year agreement that was going to bring in $30 million over 20 years. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Do I like the peak time thing? No, I hate it. I think we used to get cheaper rates. However, I can understand why they signed the agreement because it's the cheapest of what we can get right now. I do have one other news story. National and international. Did you all hear what happened to Brian May of Queen?
I just happen to have not heard about it.
He's been hospitalized.
Yeah.
Now, don't you feel like a dick, Fred?
Did they ever figure out why or what's going on?
Don't.
Yeah.
Yep.
He ripped his butt cheeks, his gluteus maximus during a session of overenthusiastic gardening.
Wow. I guess he ripped ass.
Yeah.
Well, quite literally, yeah. He said he ripped his butt muscles to shreds.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's a legit headline. I mean, how rock and roll can you get?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Ripping your ass apart while gardening.
COVID
Right.
takes another victim.
Way to make an ass of yourself.
Yeah. He ripped himself a new one.
Ozzy Osbourne somewhere reading that going, well, I've never done that. Oh, sure, come here. I can't do a good Ozzy.
Well, it depends. Is he coked out? Is he high? Is he on painkillers? There's different versions of Ozzy. Yeah.
Matter. The man can sing a perfect pitch, but he can't speak a full sentence. I don't understand, but
Yeah.
good for him.
He can't say, "Who the fuck is that?"
Oh yeah, when he cusses, you can. It's distinct.
Yeah, that's the British in him.
Takes pride in that.
Okay, this was on. This isn't a part of what we're talking about tonight, but I have to actually run this through you guys because I thought it was hilarious.
Oh my
I've got
God!
one of those.
Oh wait!
What?
Here's another headline from
Okay.
page 6. Queen legend Brian May shreds his fat bottom while gardening.
Ooh.
What? Well played. Well played.
Well played, sir. Well played. I like that.
Now, out of
Um,
out of respect, he does say that the pain is relentless. So I hope he gets better soon.
Me too. So at work, I bought myself a calendar over the Christmas period before Rona hit, and it's an Uncle John's bathroom reader calendar. And on the 27th of April, I've been saving this. It says English translations of what major movies were called overseas. So it's like, okay, here's the title of a movie. It's translated overseas, and then we retranslate it over to what it means in English. For example, the Terminator in Poland is known as electronic murderer. In Portugal, Psycho is known as the man who killed his mother.
It's got a ring to it.
Yeah.
I mean, literal translation. I love it.
Yeah. In China, Field of Dreams, I love Field of Dreams, by the way. Field of Dreams. Imaginary dead baseball players live in my cornfield.
Okay, that wins. That wins.
Oh, no.
I wonder what Children of the Corn is.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. If you leave me, I delete you. That was in Italy.
Ooh.
I love it. I love that.
That's very modern because Facebook.
Yeah. Silver Linings Playbook in Russia is My Boyfriend is a Psycho.
Silver Linings Playbook?
Yeah.
He wasn't a psycho. I wouldn't consider him a psycho.
Yeah. Well, it's Russia for you. In Thailand, Little Fockers is Zany Son-in-Law, Zippy Grandkids, and Sour Father-in-Law.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Really?
And the last one is, this is from Portugal, good old Portugal, the one who renamed Psycho. Lost in translation is Meetings and Failures in Meetings.
It was lost in translation, all right. My goodness.
Congratulations, you translators.
Wow.
And that's sad.
That's amazing. I love it.
All right. You guys ready to get into the main topic?
Yep.
All right, let's get into it.
Absolutely.
All right. So tonight, now after last week, which we had an amazing episode of the Beatles versus the Stones. And obviously we came out with a clear winner. The listeners. So tonight, we just started discussing, more music. Now, we thought we'd give it, one more go, not of like who's better than who, but we started talking about MTV Unplugged. So, and we're going to talk about our favorite episodes. Pretty much we picked two of our favorite artists of those that have appeared on there, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. What we liked, what we didn't like, anything and everything we want about it. So
It's true.
Yeah. So
except some of us are fucking rebels, and we did 3.
You did 3?
I did 3.
Brad, I think you need to go do some gardening.
I watched 3.
Who the fuck is Brad?
Sir Bradley.
Never seen this guy that y'all keep calling Brad.
Let's see. Okay, so for who isn't familiar with what MTV Unplugged was and still is, it started out back in the late 80s, early 90s. It's a TV series on MTV, obviously calling it MTV Unplugged, which showcased, musical artists playing their music on acoustic instruments, generally. The first run of the show, it's had a few. The first run of the show ran from 89 to 99. Then it aired less frequently with a bunch of specials from 2000 to 2009, which was usually billed as Unplugged 2.0 because they named everything 2.0 after the turn of the millennium, which was stupid. But then it's recently made a comeback with some of the more modern artists, which if you know anything about modern artists, most of the time they don't play their own instruments. So I'm not going to get into that, though. That's a sore subject for me. No, you know what? Here's my opinion. If you just create music on a computer and not on an instrument itself, you do not know how to create, you do not know how to write music. You're learning how to create a computer program that sounds nice. Good job.
You are not an artist. You are an entertainer.
You're a computer programmer. That is what you are. I'm sorry, I am sore about this. I'm really sore about it.
If you're sore, you should rub some Bengay on that.
Yeah, I think I went gardening earlier. So, yeah, some of the listeners like, yeah, we waited for 2 people to laugh. I've got some interesting information about the beginnings of it. That it was initially what?
Let me just say that some of us are respectful and keep our phones on mute, so we're not making all kind of weird noises in the background.
So,
but I'm doing the Jim look from The Office.
Or fuck me. What am I talking about?
By the way, guys, I will label this as uncensored, so don't go overboard. But I'll have a disclaimer at the beginning of this. So, yeah,
don't say.
Yeah, just don't go overboard.
For uncensored. Yeah, that makes.
I do have mute buttons, by the way. So oh Lord, I'd have to mute myself. God. Anyway, did you guys know that MTV was turned down, or Unplugged was actually turned down by MTV? The idea of it. It actually had to make a second round before, they decided to say, okay, well, we'll give it a shot.
Honestly, I'm not really surprised, but it did turn out to be one of their bigger draws in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, because they were still showing music videos, and to have a program like that, the network they didn't think would be able to make a bunch of money because, you don't have separate concert goers paying all this money to, see these people perform. They're putting it on for free pretty much for people on TV. Not only that, but, a lot of these artists were kind of, on their last legs, it seemed like. And then they did this and, of course, took off again. But a lot of these episodes, it wasn't just MTV Unplugged for rock. It actually spanned different genres. Obviously, it started with rock music. We've had some rap on there, pop music, as well as some Spanish music, which isn't a surprise because what did we talk about a couple weeks ago? The Latin explosion. So obviously Shakira and a few others were on there.
Yep. And, it did well. I think the later that we got into it, I think it just lost touch with viewers. It was very much it became very much we don't want to sit and watch a 4-hour or an hour-long program of music. We want to see our 3-minute video and be done.
Yeah. So we've all chosen different ones. We had Sir Bradley chose 3 artists. The rest of us have chosen 2 to talk about. But before we get into that, there's a lot of other artists who have appeared on the show who have since released their sessions as albums. We've had Rod Stewart, Paul McCartney, Shakira, which Paul McCartney was the first, by the way, to release his session as an album. Tony Bennett, Jay-Z, Eric Clapton, and a lot of them. When I'm saying this has continued on through today, we've got Miley Cyrus, Liam Gallagher, of course, Shawn Mendes, the Scorpions, 30 Seconds to Mars, and Adam Lambert. Just this year alone, we started, MTV is actually bringing it back yet again for another rendition of it because of the coronavirus and everybody's having to stay at home. They have started Unplugged at Home.
I'm sorry, did I hear Liam Gallagher?
Yes.
Huh.
No.
I would not have thought that.
Oh, yeah, you've mentioned it. So If you didn't mention it, I would have worried about you. And why? Because Oasis is awesome.
There goes a note.
There you go. Sorry.
Wah, wah, wah,
You can retell it in your style.
Did you mute him?
No.
Oh, bummer.
All right.
With this,
Keep it up.
With this Unplugged at home, I don't know how the quality is going to be because it's going to be pretty much people sitting on their webcam playing music, playing their music, performing it. But they're expected, some of the expected artists are Wyclef Jean, Jewel, Phineas, Melissa Etheridge, Monsta X, Alessia Cara, which is the first person performing first episode, Shaggy, and Youngblood. Those are the ones that are expected right now. So we may see more of that, or the ratings could say, why did you do that? You just spent like $20 million pulling these people out of obscurity, re-obscurity, and you've lost so much money. Don't do it.
Yeah,
again.
let's be honest. I knew about two of the people that you named.
Jewel, Wyclef.
And Wyclef, yeah. You got it.
Well, we all know why we recognize Jewel, because, man, I would have liked to play some foolish games with her when I was younger.
Who will save your soul?
Well, not her. Wyclef, maybe. Okay. Did you all do any sort of looking into about why the show was created itself?
I'll be honest, I did not. Basically because my ties to the show, I don't really have an opinion about why they did it, more so than it has.
Well, from what I read, there was a few things worked into that. Of course, there's rumors saying, no, it was mainly one. I think it was kind of a combination of three different things. One was like the creators or the producers of the show, Jim Burns and Robert Small, were inspired by an acoustic encore to Bruce Springsteen's show. And then, of course, another producer whose last name is Jules Shear, I guess is not like a creator, but more of an artist. Excuse me. Sorry. My throat's a little rough today. Did a lot of talking. She got the idea of doing this for her own acoustic album from watching Bon Jovi and members of Bon Jovi play an acoustic set during the '89 MTV Music Awards. So,
hey, the Matt.
Yeah.
Are you like behind me? Are you reading my fucking notes?
Chime in anytime, man.
I was just going to say that what I had heard that kind of got the ball moving on this MTV Unplugged was, now I didn't go and get any names or anything like that, but I was told that some producers were inspired to do the MTV Unplugged due to the Richie Sambora, John Bon Jovi segment that they played live at the MTV Music Awards. If I'm not mistaken, 1989, I thought.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's what I heard.
Yeah.
And I may be remembering this incorrectly, so forgive me because I was like 7 at the time. Didn't they do like Dead or Alive in that set?
They did.
If I'm not mistaken, it was Wanted, Dead or Alive, and Living on a Prayer.
Yes, Living on a Prayer was the more popular of in the set.
I'm sorry, I'm still partial to Wanted, Dead or Alive as a acoustic, basically because it was just so raw. Like it was so emotional and raw. Like you don't get that from electric stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the things why it's actually an important show. Is that it did stuff like that. It gave artists a new outlet to showcase their talents, a new way for artists to find a new audience, and it gave them a way to give their careers a much needed boost, such as Rod Stewart, who was big in the 70s and he just kind of fell off the earth in the 80s. Page and Plant, same thing. Alice in Chains was kind of on the way down with Lane Staley just because of his health. Nirvana, of course, because their sales were starting to. Nirvana because their sales were starting to slump a little bit, and also because of Kurt Cobain's health, and as well as Kiss, because they were pretty much playing like, what do you call them? Conventions. So
yeah, they were doing the tour scene at that point.
Yeah, to like 200-300 people in a room at the most. But that's pretty much, some of the background on MTV Unplugged, and why we decided to do this episode tonight was because of, it's got some of our favorite artists on there. There's some really great performances, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. So who wants to go first? I've done a lot of talking, so I'll hold off for a minute.
I would be more than happy to go first, because the two that I've done are a little more obscure, I think, maybe. Not necessarily obscure. I mean, they're still big name artists, but probably not the most popular episodes.
Fire away.
But, so the first episode that I did was Korn. And for anybody that knows me, knows that in high school, Korn was a very, very, very big band. I owned all their CDs at that point. They were a huge influence on my musical taste, and I even went and seen them perform back in the summer of 2000, which would probably be either right after or right before the episode. But for any of the listeners that know who Korn is, Korn was very much a heavy band. Like they relied a lot on the electrical reverbs, and they used kickboards a lot.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that they did an Unplugged. I had no idea.
Well, and here's the honest thing about it. Me being a fan of Korn for as long as I have been, had no clue that they had done an Unplugged album or an Unplugged set. So for me to go back and rewatch it at this point in my life, it was beyond amazing. So for anybody who knows the band, they put out their 5th studio album called Issues. And it was right after Issues come out is when they did the Unplugged set, and that's when I went and seen them in concert way back in the year of 2000. So let's date myself there a little bit. But, seeing them live several times and knowing what they sound like on a CD, you don't really expect to get the same feel from an Unplugged set, because you don't have the real heavy push of the bass. You don't have the effects of whammy bars and all the electronics that are used in today's music, especially in today's rock.
What was that? You cut out that last couple of seconds on my end.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that you don't really get the effects of like the heavy bass, because it's not, they're not using amplifiers. And you don't get the whammy bar effects, and you don't get the electronic effects from the boards and all that stuff that people use today. But their use of instruments to make the same noises was amazing. Like they had some different drum instruments and percussion instruments that replicated some of the same sounds on the album. So I was really pleased with how authentic they kept it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will have to say they did 2 songs, 2 of my favorites, by the way. They did the song Freak on a Leash, which came out on Follow the Leader in 1997, I believe, 97 or 98. I'll double check that. But they did a duet with Amy Lee from Evanescence. And it was chilling. Just the fact of, if you listen to the production song, like if you listen to it on the CD or see it live, how heavy and how, just bogged down the song is. But to watch them do it with no power, to do just normal acoustic instruments, it took on like a scary feel as opposed to an angry feel. Like it actually gave me chills when I listened to it. But they did that, and then they did a cover of "Make Me Bad," which is off their Issues album, which was the next album that come out. And they did it with Robert Smith of The Cure. So half of the song was "Make Me Bad" and half of the song was a Cure song. But what I really found interesting about that is Jonathan Davis, who I've done a lot of research about, but Jonathan Davis had a rough childhood. It kind of fueled him to make the music, but he basically says in an interview before they do the song, he says, Robert Smith and The Cure got me through high school. And I can totally see where he gets that in his music. So.
And I can completely relate to that because I followed The Cure when I was in high school too. I mean, they had just put out a brand new album, and I used to called Blood Flowers that I used to listen to on repeat, especially their song "Maybe Someday." Oh my god, I'm right there with them.
It's just the fact that it was just like it made their music go from angry to heartfelt, and I don't think anybody that ever listened to Korn on a CD or saw them in concert would say their music is heartfelt. And it definitely opened up another side of them for me.
No.
But it definitely opened up another side of them for me to see the emotion that actually went into this music. And sometimes I don't think that emotion was anger, but it comes out as anger in rock and roll, right? So,
well, it depends. I think it would have helped them a little bit if people didn't, as soon as they walked out on stage, immediately start mosh pitting. So,
but in all fairness, you have to admit their music was very mosh worthy. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It was for the time. It was heavy. It was probably one of the heavier bands that ever made it popular.
Yeah,
and made it to that level. So, but for me, of course, Korn is always going to hold a special place in my heart because of high school, and from the memories that I had from the music and the concert and all that stuff. So. It was very chilling to me. It was very eye-opening to see that it wasn't just being pissed off all the time. Like there was actual other emotions that went into there.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is the band Korn, Korn, not CORN. If you want to look them up, that's a vegetable.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
Obvious.
Hey! I'm just trying to point out how ignorant some of these listeners probably are. Email me.
Hell, man.
Email me. Yes, that's KORN, and usually where the backwards are. Look them up. Go check them out.
Or the right way around for some of our listeners.
Oh. Wow. I can't remember how many studio albums they have. It's 8 or 9 now, and maybe closer to 10. But yeah, definitely if you were a fan of heavy rock or heavy metal, the last time I'll say this is the genre I'll put them in. The last time I went and seen them, they played with Slipknot. So.
And only Korn can cause one of its own band members to go find Jesus.
Man, y'all leave Ted alone. He's good. He's a good dude.
He'll forgive me. He's Christian.
A true story. All right, so do you want me to talk about my second one, or do we want to let somebody else talk about their main?
Go ahead and finish yours up. Since the mains, do take the longest, we don't just want to go back in and touch on. If you're just going to touch on it, go right ahead.
Yeah, no. So the second one I chose to watch was Alice in Chains, and again, for the people that know me, know that I have a link with Alice in Chains, basically because of high school and everything. And I will say it wasn't as eye opening for me as it was Korn, because a lot of their stuff was not as heavy, so I could see it translate more through the Unplugged scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But man, to say that Lane was on point, like, I don't think I've ever heard a better performance of Down in a Hole ever. Like, any live show, any CD, it was just, he was so on point in his performance.
And from what I understand, there was some major concern about if he could actually pull this off.
His health was very iffy at that point in time, and unfortunately no longer with us. But
yeah,
I mean, beyond that, but Alice in Chains are still making music. They're still touring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of who the lead singer is they have at this point. Definitely not Lane, but not horrible. He does a sufficient job.
Well, I mean, you can't replace Lane Staley. It's like a lot of these bands. You cannot replace the person that makes the band, you know, who they are. You can try, you can say it's all about the music. Really, these are 4 individuals creating something, or 5, or however many. And if you take one away and replace with somebody, you're putting in something different. And that kind of goes into, you know, my conversation with one of the bands that I chose. So, but yeah, I mean, it's different.
But yeah, so if you're, and I will put them, as much as I hate to do this, I will put them in the grunge category, because they were out at the same time as, like, Nirvana and what's the other band? Pearl Jam.
What's the other band?
Hey, back off! I'm not a big Pearl Jam fan.
What the f*** is wrong with you?
I'm not a fan of listening to music I really can't understand the lyrics on, and if I
can't find a better band.
If I can emulate the lead singer, it's not good. So
look,
I'm just saying.
The movie Ted made fun of Pearl Jam and Eddie Vedder singing. He said, any 90, you know, the songs from the 90s when you can't understand what the lead singer is singing.
Yes, but to be fair, that was more Hootie and the Blowfish, because you could do any 90s song with just vowels.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, yeah.
Hey, oh, yeah.
I'm just.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm throwing it out there.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I like Pearl Jam.
I really do too.
I'm not a huge fan, but that song right there, the lyrics, even flow. That's all I know.
Yeah, that's it, because nobody else knows what the hell he was talking about.
Well, the same can be said for some of the music that Stone Temple Pilots put out too. You know, of course, you know, may he rest in peace. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's be honest. Weird Al made a song about Nirvana because Kurt Cobain didn't pronounce his words correctly, and in part of the song, he basically says it's hard to understand with all these marbles in my mouth. So it was kind of the time period, but
yeah,
I just wasn't as big of a Pearl Jam fan as I was Alice in Chains and Nirvana and STP. Like, those were what I considered hardcore grunge. But that is another show, and I will let somebody else come in and take over.
My mind is just completely blown that you can't you don't understand Eddie Vedder, but you understand Jonathan Davis.
Well, sometimes, yeah. More times than I did Eddie Vedder.
I know. On Freak on a Leash, he goes, "Go."
Da, 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 da,
Oh shoot, I'll go next. I don't care.
Well, you vocalized first, so go right ahead, Brad.
I need to find out who the Brad guy is that you guys keep talking about, but I don't see him, so I'll go.
He's the ghost in your window, man.
Hey, I got it wrong.
He's the voice inside your mind.
Okay.
Hey, those are the 2 first lines of a song we should be writing.
Ultra Unplugged.
Yeah. Go ahead, man.
So going over this list, and I looked over it again just yesterday because I did have a few, some ideas of what I wanted to, of the groups I wanted to talk about. And going over this list, it kind of made me realize that I wanted to add a third one in there. And by looking on this list, I was completely dumbfounded by the fact that Nickelback was on there.
If you're going to talk about Nickelback, I need change.
The most popular hated band ever yet.
Okay. Now, Nickelback, that was just a joke, because there's no way in hell I would go into a little bit about Nickelback. So, just a joke. However, I did battle back and forth between who was going to be my number two and who would potentially be the third one or not talked about at all. But I did decide to go with Bon Jovi. This happened June 22nd of 2007, which I kind of would have expected them to do one probably in the mid-late 90s, and was really kind of unexpected to see that I know we lost somebody.
Yeah, we lost Tommy.
But what kind of phone does he have?
There he is.
Oh, there he is. I'm assuming that he has not upgraded his phone.
No, but there's one on the way. Should be here Monday.
Oh, okay. We'll see if that one has any better luck. But I was really dumbfounded that Bon Jovi didn't have one in the anytime in the 90s, because that seemed to be kind of when they were kind of on top. But anyway, it was 2007 whenever they did this. But they went all out. They had and I don't know the fact of who this was, but there was an orchestra that they used, and that seems to kind of be I guess a theme with me. I think all of them that are on my list have an orchestra. Yeah, but Bon Jovi actually had a couple of famous or hot musicians at the time to come on and do a thing with him. Now, I watched this Bon Jovi Unplugged, and honestly, it felt a little bit more like a VH1 Storytellers, to be honest, because John Bon Jovi, he's talking in between every song and a lot of times describing the song, so it did seem a lot more like a VH1 Storyteller, but he did have the guitarist and singer for All American Rejects to do "It's My Life" with them.
Oh, cool.
Which some of my favorite Bon Jovi songs. It took a little while for "It's My Life" to kind of grow on me a little bit. When I first heard it, I wasn't that crazy about it, but this version of it was just, oh wow, it floored me. It was done so well, and someone else that it seemed like kind of fell off the face of the earth, or at least to me anyway. But they did a duet with Leanne Rimes. It was "Till We Ain't Strangers Anymore."
Really?
Yeah, that was not long before they decided they were going to do a little bit of country and team up with Sugar.
That's an awesome song.
Yeah,
that was kind of them dipping their toe into it. See what the reaction would be.
Back in the mid late 2000s, kind of, which I was like, it's Bon Jovi. No, it's not country. Please don't do this. But they did, and they made the stuff sound good anyway. So, what the hell do I know? So, but there were songs that I would have really enjoyed to hear, on here. But there were some of their bigger hits, that they did on here. But I do believe that they probably did a little bit of, promotion as well, like pretty much all musicians do. If they're released an album, so they're going around and they're playing these songs. It's not necessarily their hits, but maybe they're trying to become hits or whatever. But yeah, unfortunately, there was no Always, which is my favorite Bon Jovi song. No Wanted, Dead or Alive, but we did hear, Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name, It's My Life. Also done, I don't know if you guys have heard it or not, but Bon Jovi does an amazing version of Hallelujah.
Dude, I was hoping that
yes.
you would mention that because I got to see Bon Jovi live in Nashville. At the time, it was Gaylord Entertainment Center. Now I think it's like Summit. I don't know. And he did Hallelujah, and he held out that final note for so long. I shit you not. Like, his skin went into his skeleton. You could see the outline of his bones in his entire head. Turned white, and I thought they was gonna pass out. And I mean, that is the first, possibly the only time during a concert that I got chills.
I've got two. I need to put my 2 cents
Incredible.
in for Bon Jovi. I know Bon Jovi over the years they've always gotten a bad rap. They never really got the respect that they truly deserve. And go to YouTube and listen to just his vocal, where they've taken the music out and just have the vocal of him singing Living on a Prayer. I kid you not, the range on that man is unmatched, or it used to be. And he's getting a lot of flack now because he doesn't have the range. He's in his 60s, people.
I remember almost everything about that show. I mean, that dude, he earned his money that night.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I don't know how many shirt changes he had to do because of all the sweat.
Yeah, and he still does the same thing today. I mean, the only real difference is, he doesn't have his range. That's why he has the audience sing with him.
He would legit, like, he would disappear. He would go backstage. And Richie is a guitarist, because he's done solo stuff himself. He would take over and do some of his things. John would come back out wearing a completely different shirt.
Yeah.
And that happened at least 5 times throughout the course of the whole show.
I actually have their most recent album on my phone. Excuse me. I bought it because, I mean, I love Bon Jovi. Well, for anybody that doesn't know what the name of that album is, it's called This House Is Not For Sale. It's not, well, it's gotten to be anymore. It's the typical Bon Jovi modern sound, which I hate that people say it's a dentist office sound. No, it's actually, it's music. It's good feeling music. And that's what he's always been about. And that's why they've always changed over time, so that, he can be related by the widest audience possible. And that man is a great philanthropist. I will always stand up for Bon Jovi. What he's doing right now with the coronavirus, still in his, a free restaurant for the needy. He's in there himself, serving people, cooking dishes, doing what he needs to do, spending all that money for people that need it.
Can I just take a quick survey here, because it seems like we're all big Bon Jovi fans, and I don't want to get into my 2 cents about all of it. But what is your favorite Bon Jovi album?
Slippery When Wet.
Mine is Crossroads. People a lot of times refer that as to the greatest hits album, but
it still had some new music on there. A lot of bands did that back then.
It had a new version of Living on a Prayer, which is called Prayer 94, which is my favorite version of Living on a Prayer. It had the addition of now I can't think of the damn song. Damn it. Okay.
You Give Love a Bad Name. Someday I'll Be Saturday Night.
Someday I'll Be Saturday Night. Yes, that was one of the additional ones that was not already a hit.
Yeah.
But it turned out that my favorite song was released on that album, Always.
Always, yeah.
So
mine, is actually the Circle.
Oh yeah.
And the main reason for that, I don't know if it's because of where I was at that time. I just graduated high school when that one came out, but We Weren't Born to Follow is probably my favorite Bon Jovi song, and it was on the Circle album.
Yeah, that came out in the mid to late 2000s, wasn't it?
It was 2008, 2009.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
No, I'm sorry. I just graduated, so it was definitely 2000. It was November, actually.
It was right before Bon Jovi stopped dyeing his hair. No, I'm not saying that to be, funny. He stopped dyeing his hair because he thought, why am I covering this up? I'm aging. I am who I am. It is what it is.
I've always had respect for John Bon Jovi.
So what's really funny, and this is probably hard to say about many bands, but my favorite album is none of the ones that you guys mentioned.
Jersey?
400 Degrees Fahrenheit.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Runaway is probably my favorite John Bon Jovi song ever.
That's up there. That's high on my list, and that was their. If I'm not mistaken, that was their first single.
It was. It was their first single off their first album. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a new one coming. Let me see exactly when that. This month.
Well, they're supposed to. We don't know if it's actually going to get released yet because of the coronavirus, but yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
this month.
I'm sure it will. May 15th is the release date, and it hasn't changed yet. But it is the 15th studio album.
Yep.
So let's just say shout out to Bon Jovi.
Yes.
You have continued to go with the times. You make amazing music.
Yeah.
He was the
shout out
great show, great performer.
Yeah. Slippery When Wet is the second. Bon Jovi was my second and third vinyl records that I ever bought. So second was Slippery When Wet. The third one was New Jersey.
So Slippery When Wet was probably their most popular album at the time.
Yeah.
Because it had, You Gave Love a Bad Name, Wanted Dead or Alive, Living on a Prayer. Like, all that stuff come off Slippery When Wet. Great album, but if I had to pick a favorite, it's going to be 400 Degrees.
Who's your other artist, Sir Bradley?
I was first say I'm really glad that Bon Jovi, kind of struck a chord with everybody here. I really didn't know that, but I had to put Bon Jovi on there. I got a good friend that lives in Jersey, and he's a Bon Jovi aficionado. So
he lives in Jersey.
So
I used to read Conan the Barbarian comic books listening to Bon Jovi.
Oh, so you're a Jersey boy.
Yeah. So I got a
Jersey thing.
Hey, but I got a good friend that lives in Jersey, and he talks about Bon Jovi all the time. So Thomas, if you're listening, that's for you.
It's a Jersey thing.
Shout out to Thomas from Jersey.
That's right. Way to go.
So anyway, my second one that I have, this was my very first, I guess if you want to call it, my very first favorite artist. But this person, I got into their music before I got into anybody else's music, and that's Mr. Bryan Adams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was he brings me back to such happy memories. He really does.
Wow.
I love Bryan Adams.
Number one song when I was born, and does anybody know that song?
Everything I do it for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have to say everything I do, yeah.
So you were born in 92?
91.
91? Okay.
Yeah, that's
okay.
what it was made for the soundtrack, the Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. So
It was. I am partial to Summer of '69 myself.
Oh, yeah.
All of these songs that you guys are mentioning have been my favorite Bryan Adams song at some point.
Cuts Like a Knife, Heaven.
Ooh, that's a good one. Cuts Like a Knife.
As a matter of fact, me and my friend Thomas that I just gave a shout out to, Me and him just did a duet of Heaven on this app called Smule, if I'm saying that right. So, and it turned out pretty good, I think. So, but Bryan Adams and Bon Jovi kind of have a link together, and that is that they were supposed to be touring together this year.
Well, that would have been
good. You mean Bryan Adams finally found himself crawling out of Japan?
I would have paid to see that show.
You know, I was telling you when I saw Bon Jovi, there was not an opener listed at all. It was just supposed to be Bon Jovi. And I was looking at the merchandise stand. I kept seeing DC. Who the hell is DC? And so we go in and take our seats, and the show starts. It was Dashboard Confessional.
Whoa! I just had a massive college flashback.
Yeah, well,
wow. Yeah.
I knew them because of Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Vindicated, which is a great song. But and then they played it that night. But it was a nice surprise. I was like, damn, I thought we were just seeing Bon Jovi. But okay.
Not trying to stray away from Bryan Adams too far. Now, yeah, I have seen Bon Jovi once myself. I was lucky enough to get to see one of my favorite bands at the time, which was Goo Goo Dolls, actually opened up for Bon Jovi when I saw him.
That's awesome.
Love me some Goo Goo Dolls.
Very cool.
This was at the height of their popularity too. So, I mean, they were, a headliner of themselves, but yet they were opening for Bon Jovi. So, but anyway, Mr. Bryan Adams, his performance was September 26th of 1997. And
we talked about a few covers during this show so far, and I tell you, one of my favorite covers ever was of a Bryan Adams. Well, Everything I Do for You, Mr. Stewie Griffin.
My God!
Shout out to Stewie Griffin. One of the best covers ever.
Okay, you know what I love is that when he said that, I heard the missus say, "Oh my God," in the background. Bravo, bravo.
Not a Family Guy fan.
Thank you.
Hi, Reba.
Hello.
Join us on mic anytime.
Sore subject, but
now this one I actually did get the performing orchestra, and it's not that I know them all that well, but apparently it's a very famous school, the Juilliard School of Arts and Music, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But it's in New York City.
That Juilliard School.
Some little unheard of school.
That little rinky-dink hole in the wall where Robin Williams went,
Yeah.
And Christopher Reeve and
Christopher, Alex Sharp, so many.
But now this Bryan Adams performance, this was actually one of the few that actually had an official release, and it actually sold over 5 million copies. So.
Ooh. And this is Bryan Adams with a B, not Ryan Adams, audience.
That is correct. Thank you for bringing that up.
Anytime I've ever mentioned Bryan Adams to anybody 10 years younger than me, they're going, oh, doesn't he put out an album lately? No, it is not Ryan Adams. It's Bryan Adams.
Yeah. So that one I was really into. I own the CD release. I still own the DVD release, and they have different set lists for whatever reason. You're going to catch a few songs that are on CD but not on the DVD, and vice versa.
They were probably just trying to capitalize on trying to sell as many units of each as possible. You get people that are like, well, why would I want the watch him perform when I can just hear all that he's got? Or, why would I want to buy the CD if all I'm going to do is buy the DVD anyway? It goes both ways. So,
yeah, I'm just going to assume that that's the Mick.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, sorry.
Imagine that. Man, that really doesn't get old, man.
Imagine that. I'm just glad you picked the appropriate parking lot this time.
I'm at the same parking lot I was at last time.
That's amazing. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate you having my back.
No problem. If you could just get your name straight.
So, as you were saying, Sir Bradley.
And just like Bon Jovi, Brian Adams, he did have 3 new songs that were played at that time, and it was Back to You, When You Love Someone, and A Little Love. So once again, that was kind of like, hey, we're promoting as well. So, gee, that seems to be a trend.
When You Love Someone was probably one of my favorite songs of his as well.
Are you thinking of When You Love Someone there, Tiny, or are you thinking of When You Love a Woman from Don Juan DeMarco, that Johnny Depp movie?
Or When a Man Loves a Woman.
Oh, no.
Still was.
Now, it's something that I didn't really mention with Bon Jovi, but even more so with Brian Adams, and not that this is probably going to sound a tad sexist. It's not intended to come across that way at all, but man, weren't these two artists really? Didn't they have some panty dropping music?
You would know.
Sir Bradley's drop every night.
But I mean, especially Brian Adams. I mean, just every song just felt like he was singing directly to this one particular young lady, and every young lady felt that. And
well, okay, yeah. I hate to, not that I'm a looker
so
or anything
when we were
like
talking
that, but
about
you know,
Everything I Do, we said that come out in like 91, right?
Yeah, November.
Yeah, so I was in, let's see, I would have been 9, so I was probably in like 3rd or 4th grade, maybe. I'm not sure the grades at that point, but
I think
I was going to say I do remember playing that song and writing to my, at that point in time, quote unquote girlfriend, like when you used to write letters and things.
Oh, holy crap! I got a flashback of who that was.
I'm sorry, I just said November. That was June of 91.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Robin Hood was a summer movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, my late brother took me to the theater to watch that. It was really good. I enjoyed it when I was little.
Back then, my favorite movie was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Robin Hood. So,
TMNT for the win.
On to Brian Adams. So.
Would that have been Secret of the Ooze or the first one?
The first one.
Oh, okay.
Hence
Secret
why
Ooze,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
The last big role Corey Feldman ever had.
Oh man, but
no, you didn't see that documentary. That was a pretty big role.
Oh, well, you know, technically his role was support, so I don't think you can consider him a lead if you catch my drift. By the way, after what, and you know, no disrespect, you know, I know what he was trying to do. After I watched that, I did go out and I didn't say I'll go out. I went and I bought his autobiography, and let me tell you. Well, to continue my thought, or at least finish my thought, that Corey Feldman book, Choreography, his autobiography, was rough. And I don't mean that it wasn't a good book. It was an outstanding book about his life, but it was rough. Anyway, that's neither here nor there when dealing with MTV's Unplugged. Now, I'm sure you listeners are wondering what just happened, why we were cut off at pretty much at the end of my thought. Well, sometimes that program that we use, the other hosts, I'm the only one on live on mic. The other hosts are kind of quote-unquote Skyping in, and we're using their phones in order to do that. But sometimes when their phones, you know, their screen goes black, goes to sleep, it drops them out of the little voice program that we use. So, anyway, we got back into it, and we actually did finish the episode. It lasted a little over 2 hours, so we decided we're going to make this a two-parter. Of course, we decided that after we re-recorded this, so, but you know, it is what it is. So this week we've had Sir Bradley as well as Tiny give us their favorite episodes from MTV Unplugged. Next week you'll have myself, the Mats, as well as Alan's choices for episodes. So, with that, before I cut this out, I apologize for the background noise. I'm actually sitting on my back porch, and you can hear our air conditioning unit, loud as it can be, but This is Monday, May 11th, and the episode comes out tomorrow, May 12th at noon Central Standard Time, as per always. So, just got to kind of record a little outro for everybody to understand what's going on. So, next week we will have MTV Unplugged Part 2. But for this week, we're going to go ahead and just say goodbye. I want to thank you, listeners, even though I've been getting harsh lately, but it is what it is. It's all just a joke anyway. I just like to kid and tease. I do appreciate you, listeners, every single one of you. Anyway, if you would like to find us on social media, we've got Facebook and Twitter. We're both at SOKy Nostalgia and Deadpan Studio 18. We also have our website, deadpan-studio.com. We have our email, SOKyNostalgia@gmail.com. We've got our deadpanstudio18@gmail.com email. And, of course, if you're already listening to us, we're streaming on one of your favorite services, but we're also available on these certain ones: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, as well as deadpanstudio.podbean.com. Podbean is our server. It hosts our podcasts and sends them all out to the streaming verse. But anyway, thank you all for joining us this week for SOKy Nostalgia. This week, I was the Matt, and I was joined by Sir Bradley, Alan, and Tiny. Y'all take care. We'll see y'all next week.